notion that artists deal with unknown mysteries of life is not a new concept. In primitive societies, the artists were often placed apart from the tribe as shaman. They were men and women with special powers to create. It is with certain irony that today, in the midst of a technological society, artists would return deep into the past to uncover these ancient mysteries, hidden forces, and shamanistic visions. In the greater part of the 20th century, artists searched the unconscious for different levels of understanding. The Surrealist movement unveiled the world of dreams and the subconscious. Today's artists are moved to describe the forces beyond the subliminal. One such artist is Danial Owen Stolpe. His work emanates from his involvement with American Indian mythology. In his work, the artist represents a culture in which man believes that through his relationship with the earth and animals, he is united with the Great Spirit. Stolpe's work may not appeal to everyone. It's stark and mystic and was called bizarre by one visitor to one of Stolpe's recent show openings. Anyone with empathy for the Native Americans of the past and present finds Stolpe's work filled with power, dignity, and unity of the universe. Stolpe lived with the Swinomish Tribe of Washington's Puget Sound for 3 years and is in constant contact with events and paths of contemporary American Indians. In the world, everything has a spirit, and man is supposed to live in harmony with that spirit, rather than trying to enslave it by massively changing the face of the earth. The noted writer and teacher T. Mike Walker says of Stolpe, Daniel Stolpe's work superimposes human and animal figures into shamanistic dream shapes. His turgid, earthy inner visions weave fins and feathers, skulls and claws, and optical incantations, calling forth the ancestor spirits who still hold and possess the non-human world. His work fuses animated archetypes which leap like shadows from an ancient fire. Hoof-footed, goat-legged, pan-like creatures wrapped in wolfskins dance with gourd rattles and bones. By arising shapes and shadows of his own dream consciousness, Stolpe's work translates into visual gift songs, connecting us back to the source of spiritual, pre-conscious life, which can't be copied, exploited, or ignored. Emerging from his mythical mind comes bears, bobcats, elk, fish, and we meet the coyote as a trickster, as a lover, and as a priest. In 2 suites of woodcuts conceived with brilliant colors and textures, Stolpe explores the mysteries of the mythical coyote. In the first suite of 10 prints, the artist explores the creation myths. One can see coyote changing the color of the sun, creating great floods, and causing earthquakes. In the second suite, Stolpe reflects the coyote's involvement with the human animal. Daniel says, to most people, this is new art, which is visually unveiling new thought patterns, ancient energies, and stories which simplify a complex set of events. He describes how science has the ability to logically develop a sequence of events, but fails to provide an answer to how people feel or how our ancestors felt. With courage and humor, Stolpe has used the coyote to explain these events. On seeing the coyote suite, the viewer responds to hidden energies. Coyote tales are both a preparation for and an understanding of change. A false sense of security makes modern man ill-prepared for sudden changes and new thought patterns. In contrast, our ancestors knew that forces in nature are always changing, and an awareness of nature's signs and symbols is in the breath of life. Stolpe says, art is a mirror of the response to feeling that any culture provides. My art is experienced as a direct confrontation of an event. In a split second, an accident, one of Coyote's many tricks, may inexplicably alter one's life. Recently, the Native Images studio has published a collection of stories that Stolpe created when the suites were completed. Stolpe writes the narrative to further enrich the stories described in the suite. To him, part of the creation of a work is the communication of an idea. Marilyn Hanson says in her introduction to the stories, the story is a reflection of the artist himself and how he relates to the world. Like Coyote, he exists outside the sphere to which mortal judgments apply. Like Coyote, he sees the artist serving to remind us that life is not what is or has been, rather, it is what is possible and always changing. The Coyote suites begin with Coyote listening to Dragonfly. Dragonfly is a messenger from the Great Spirit and has very special powers. Whenever Coyote encounters Dragonfly, he lifts his ears and listens carefully for special messages and instructions. Sometimes he follows them, and sometimes he doesn't. Stolpe has produced the suite using a somewhat unconventional method of relief printing. The resulting prints have been termed extraordinary in the terms of boldness of color, with the directness not often seen in woodcuts. The main key block for the design has its image drawn on it and carved out. Each area is then cut out with a jigsaw, and veneers of ash, oak, or mahogany are applied where the pieces used to be. Each veneer has a different character of grain, producing a unique texture. Fir plywood is used for the background color. The jigsawed sections are individually inked and then fitted back into the key block as one would assemble a puzzle. In this manner, it is possible to achieve a print with 10 to 12 colors while running it through the press 4 times. The contemporary American artist is working and showing his or her work in an environment that often reflects itself through the art critics. They find themselves bored on their frequent visits to galleries known to show and support painters, printmakers, and sculptors who practice their work of today for today. Daniel's work seems to be the exception to many rules. Magazines, daily and weekly newspapers have given his work and their readers vivid, positive descriptions of their interest in this work that Stolpe himself describes as future primitivism. One newspaper reporter recently said of Stolpe's work, "These woodcuts explode with the color of the western sunset. The bright, rounded shapes of the desert environment contrast sharply with the coyote's stark, lean figure." Stolpe has used different wood grains to create a strong textural diversity. Coyote rarely encounters any obstacles to the satisfaction of his instinctual cravings. A sense of euphoria and sexual freedom characterize his activities. He plays, he makes love, and he enjoys life. Daniel's work has already become part of the collections of the Smithsonian Institution, the Utah Museum of Fine Arts, and the Portland Art Museum. The spirit and native heritage of this place named the United States has always been of interest to many living in the countries of Europe, South America, and Asia. The work Daniel has and is creating is well received and collected by those who have or wish for an intense involvement with the spirit world and dealing with modern life with consciousness of traditional cycles of land, animal, spirit, and man. A giant example of Stolpe's most recent work is the product of more than 1.5 years' work. An art reviewer wrote, "With the current exhibit, the artist has introduced a large hand-pulled edition, woodcut, entitled Shaman Vision. In this work, Stolpe seems to have veered away from his celebration of primitive man's purely instinctual facet. From the shaman's head sprouts an arc of animals: the eagle, the bear, the bobcat, the coyote, and the salmon. The conceptual beauty and professional execution of Shaman Vision are above reproach. In color and texture, Stolpe has gone beyond the promise of his former work." Daniel says of his work, "In dreams, man journeys to the mysterious boundaries which separate him from mythic sources. As I draw these images, I also conceive of a dream in which man's reflection to his world is shrouded in mystery, magic, and imagination. These elements are basic in any human experience, with which the artist and viewer can see the world again as if for the first time. Every now and then I wonder whether the mystic will disappear from our lives, as demands of contemporary living dominate our energies." Through words and the powerful art of poetry, Daniel can talk of the love and life that he has revealed through his visual native images. A poem he wrote to accompany the Shaman Vision is titled Affirmation Chant. Lightning power of the eagle feather breaks through the pale veil of existence. The coyote mantle, bone, tooth, and fur, placed on the head of a powerful woman, transfers the spirit and life energy from the skins of the animal. The quietness of the dove, the force spirit power of the eagle, the command of the bear, and the elusiveness of the coyote. The defenses of the cactus, the centuries' vibration of redwood, the sacredness of the red willow bark, and the healing scent of sage combine. From darkness, particles of molten energy, fire, light from the stars, form the stone people, water spirits, and four winds. The understanding of these forces, when all things are in balance, the unique energy, the structure, the incomprehensible awaken, the acceptance of the eternal mystery." From his early fascination with realistic depictions of mammals, insects, and birds, Stolpe has matured into a mythic realm. His visions transmit a myriad of meanings as they unfold deep in the roots of unconsciousness. Explicit, personal, and direct. Graphic messengers of light pass through Stolpe's subtle sleight of hand. Gordon Gilkey, the curator of prints and drawings at the Portland Art Museum, wrote to Daniel saying, "Situated as we are in the Northwest, and knowing of your dedication to preserving the images of the Native Americans of this region via your fine prints, this museum would be most happy to act as a regional repository for your work." Donald Jenkins, the director of the Portland Art Museum, adds, "Your work is a most appropriate addition to our collection, both as a fine example of the woodcut art and as an illustration of an Indian legend that has particular significance for our public." Dennis Banks, one of the principal founders and speakers for the American Indian movement and a collector of Daniel's work, speaks of the spirit that has been the path of the Native American and is the major force behind Daniel's work.
The eagle is still an eagle, as it was tens of thousands of years ago, still following the ways of its ancestors long since gone. And so it is with us. If we are to provide our future generations with the same songs, prayers, language, and spirituality, that which has given us strength, then we must never abandon the teachings of our forefathers. We are of this land, and we must remain that way forever.
In his foreword to a book published by the Aptos Press featuring Stolpe's Coyote Suites 1 and 2, Dennis Banks continues to share his uniquely clear vision of the past, present, and future Indian world.
Throughout Western mankind's history, it's been assumed to a large extent that our destinies have been cast either by political, economic, or military forces. Religion itself often played a dual role, partner to thrones, empires, and democracies, while offering messages of hope to the doorstep of eternity. One rarely finds any effort or work which suggests that all destiny may be the scheme of something of which we have yet to explore or understand. The difficulty, of course, lies in the fact that Western religion could not, and probably never will, accept a doctrine that contradicts its basic foundation. Native Americans' religions and beliefs, on the other hand, have long accepted the premise that our future lies within all living species of this universe. One of those species is called coyote. But coyote is simply not an animal resembling a fox, dog, or wolf. Coyote is the legend of our beliefs, strength of our strong. The music in the winds is coyote, and when the four seasons change the color of the leaves, you'll see coyote in all its beauty. Perhaps someday the white man will understand coyote, but it won't be until he's ready to explore with a new meaning of what life is all about and what it's not about. It was like a fresh rain then when I first saw this hope coming to a man called Stolpe. He is the first sign that coyote is leaping around. I thought only coyote came to the visions of Indian people. I think coyote is restless and perhaps wants to be let loose upon another generation. Who is coyote and what is coyote? Who is coyote anyway to appear in all our legends, myths, and stories through meanings of spirituality? What is it that holds our people together to revere coyote with such high esteem, yet allows us to joke and make fun of? Well, coyote is the purification lodge of the Sundance people, the birth of a newborn baby, and the tears from a loved one passed on. When you hear the beaver and understand its language and whistle the sound of the meadowlark, then you'll know what coyote is. And should you become angry this day, coyote will appear, that mischievous old codger, and whisper in your ear, "See, I told you I was going to get you mad today." That's coyote.
The noted anthropologist, teacher, and writer Lowell Beam contributed to Stolpe's Coyote Suite 1 and 2 by offering his views of the shaman in the Indian world. He draws interesting parallels between the shaman and their magical powers and the artist of today.
The artist in all societies draws upon the cosmological reference of shamanism and those archaic techniques of ecstasy and symbols which are universal and so clearly formed in the cosmologies of the Native American. The artist is close to the shaman in many societies, perhaps all. It is primarily the shaman that uses visual symbols to explain the other worlds of which he or she must be a part, to serve as philosopher, doctor, psychologist, scientist, and artist for the society served by his special position. That special place is in between worlds. The shaman stands at the center of this, the secular world, which is the center of the universe, both feet squarely on the ground, freely understanding and being part of the human world, but also a part of the sacred time and sacred places from which the world has come and will forever be a part. Stolpe's use of coyote is especially pertinent because of the role coyote necessarily plays to a people with the most sensible, rational, and human view of the world. Consider if a world must be viewed as a whole, a bunch of parts, interdependently connected, each part serving the other, how impractical it is to view the parts of it as separate and disconnected. The shamanic world is one in which energy, power, knowledge is flexible, quixotic, neutral, good, bad, has its own will, and is generally available to all if one knows the rules. Thus, no one is all good, all bad, but all things are potentially useful. There is a philosophical foundation for extraordinary creative thrust in these philosophies. So, coyote is after power. He is lascivious, scatological, tricky, selfish, mean. Yet he creates life, saves the people, rescues the helpless, establishes order out of chaos, but ultimately tells us that it is normal not to be perfect, and that it is normal to reach for the stars and occasionally fall on your ass.
My work in a sense is in a direct sense is an expression of my experience with the same values and traditions and aspects that a lot of Indians experience. And living on a reservation for about 3 years in Washington gave me an insight into the thinking and the attitudes of Native Americans.
So what do you say to people when they walk up to you and they say, well, I don't know anything about art, but I know what I like? How do you react to that?
Well, that's a good way to start from. You know, it's the people who know art are the art historians and the curators and the art critics. They're supposed to know about it, and they can write and know about it. And basically, what it gets down to is people will really get basically down to either they like it or they don't. And that's kind of like the difference between a good picture and a bad picture. It either works or it doesn't. There isn't any formula or pat answer you can give to why one work of art's more successful or enduring than another piece of art. Everything's a matter of opinion, I believe. You can start with some basic craft abilities, like can the guy draw or can he paint? Is he really dealing with print media in terms of dealing with woodcuts and etchings with its inherent nature as a medium, or is he trying to make an etching look like a silkscreen or do some other kind of thing with the material that isn't inherent in the material? And but as far as what the statement makes, it's usually pretty much what a person has in their own visual history and what their own basic curiosity as a person is, which gives them the ability to see new things or respond and trust a gut level response to new art that they haven't seen before. And most people that look at my art when they first start out are pretty taken back with it because of the aggressiveness of it and a lot of times the sexual overtones of Coyote's exploits of running through the mythical world of creation and destruction. And after a while, if they see the work, it grows on them because they can't take the image or the strength of the image out of their mind. I've had several people over a period of a year, year and a half, turn around 180 degrees in terms of disliking my work totally, to the point of wanting to collect it. And so a lot of people that were fairly conservative in their social life have bought my work. And one of the things I mentioned one time, I said, well, I wonder how your neighbors or your friends will respond to that. And they said, well, they really don't care. They know that it's going to shock them, and they'll just leave it at that. And coyotes, when I've been out in the wild and so on, I've always felt very comfortable with coyotes around. They never gave me they always gave me a feeling of strength and protection. And also the coyote, in terms of Indian legends and stories, is a creator and the basis for, I always refer to it as kind of the Indian Genesis, really the Old and New Testament of the Indian. The old legends that describe the creation of the world and the shape of mountains and why a skunk has its stripes and so on are all related to coyote. And then a lot of the stories and legends deal with human behavior and why people behave the way they do, get angry, why sexuality is such a force, a creative force in all cultures and so on, is all due to coyotes. So I refer to coyotes being the New Testament too, in terms of explaining certain human characteristics. So through my work, I try to show coyote and celebrate and pay respect to him.
In looking at Daniel Stolpe's etchings, lithographs, woodcuts, and sculpture, the viewer is struck by the concept and world vision which vies with equal importance to his art form. With works and actions that reveal his ambivalent nature, Stolpe is creator and destroyer, giver and taker. Like the coyote, he acts without knowing good or evil, right or wrong, and is constantly at the mercy of his desires and appetites. As Pablo Picasso said, artworks aren't in themselves the truth. They are only lies that show us the truth.
What are you doing?
Have to bring him back. I'm gonna sing my death song now. And bring him back.
Oh, no.
Divine Son. Divine. This earth maker's tent. Divine. Is the spider lady's posture. Divine is thunder. Divine is lightning. Divine is coyote's journey from beginning to end. I became a human being and was born of parents and walked among the two-leggeds. I saw the new colors in the sky. I tasted the new flavors in the earth. It was not pleasant to me.
Murray Mednick has created a drama of shamanistic dimension in his recently completed Coyote cycle. These 7 one-act plays blend ancient storytelling techniques with traditional Native American mythology. Fusing contemporary vernacular with archetypal characters, Mednick's sacred theater ignites our tribal memories and reconnects us with our preconscious roots. By respectfully juggling Hopi creation myths with elements of Greek drama, slapstick, streetwise language, and a natural environment, the Coyote cycle provides us with a powerful ecological parable. Mednick's mystic vision evolved from seeds sown in Pointing, the first Coyote play which wrote itself through him back in 1978 at the Padua Hills Playwrights Workshop in Southern California. Since then, the Coyote Company has worked faithfully with him, co-creating the plays out of a series of exercises. The result is a ceremonial cycle of plays performed outdoors that plunge actors and audiences alike into an ancient view of existence. I wanted to develop a non-dramatic presence in the actor which was not dependent on dramatic tension, which was not a fiction, Mednick explained. Coyote Trickster is on a mission from Earthmaker to destroy the evil spirits afflicting mankind. The earth is dying, a sacred dump, and as the shadow ripens, Coyote travels through the planet of the spider people to the other side camp, where he faces old memories and dead thoughts. Meanwhile, another figure, a clown who has lost the power of speech through drug abuse, is pitied by Spider-Woman, who teaches her to be fully human. By the end of the cycle, she has become Clown Divine. After listening to Old Nana, the incarnation of an Apache warrior, Coyote Trickster follows instructions to kill old ways and dies. Coyote hangs himself and Trickster buries himself, after which they return to complete the mission. In the 7th play, Coyote finally brings the waterfall to Earth. Coyote and Trickster are 2 sides of the same coin, spirit and body split from each other. Coyote creator enters by falling from the sky, a wisecracking smartass with his head in the clouds, ready to fuck anything that moves. Trickster, the Coyote's cynical shadow, emerges out of the ground and connects us to the long line of the dead. If they could ever get together, they would form a complete one-hearted being. Age after age peels away, creations come and go, and still Spider-Woman has trouble knitting these 2 together. Unlike the European invaders, Native Americans do not see themselves as separate from nature. To them, the land, the air, the water, the birds, the beasts, the insects, every tree and flower, every fish and frog are part of one great being. Chief Seattle expressed this in the concept clearly when he said, "Man did not weave the web of life, he is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. This we know, all things are connected like the blood which unites one family. What is man without the beast? If all the beasts were gone, man would die from a great loneliness of spirit. The earth is our mother, and to harm the earth is to heap contempt on its creator. Contaminate your bed, and you will one night suffocate in your own waste."
For one thing, we knew each other. We've worked together straight now for 10 years. Over 10 years, right? I mean, through the provisional theater, through the beginning of the provisional theater.
Yeah.
So, and then into another 2 theater groups, and then we did this project together. But this one is sort of the one that captured some of the most. No, not really. Actually, I was going to say some of the most ups and downs. Not true. There's been some incredible ups a few years.
We're not going to tell you those stories.
Yeah, those stories.
Well, I mean, I think that it bottomed out at a certain point, and that because it's interesting because I think the project kept us together. I mean, it saved the friendship in a sense. In other words, what has gone down between Coyote and Trickster healed some of the wounds that Norbert and I made on ourselves,
right,
on each other, which is, you know, an incidental benefit of the place.
And it would be just a fact that once a year, no matter what happened, we'd be working together with old Nana.
And I think Murray has consciously used those antagonisms and insights that we had. Like the 4th year was really the worst, and he started the play with us coming out and insulting each other and going for the throat.
Right.
And Norbert said a couple of things to me that
almost stopped the play.
That almost stopped the play at the 1st year, you know, because we know things about each other that, you know, that family sort of, that sort of knowledge that is, for me, has always been, I would rather leave my family behind. I don't want to live with that, around people who have those insights, or I haven't. I mean, doing this, I think, has made me confront that too. You can't get away from it, you know.
You can't fool them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see, in the beginning of the play, she tells the two-legged white eyes that she will take care of them as much as she can, but there is a limit to what she can do. So she puts up a shield to protect them from trickster's vengeance, up to a point. And movement-wise, I try to do something that is, what I think is something that did come out in an exercise, I think maybe 4 years ago, the first time that we worked. Mm-hmm. One of the first times we worked. What else?
That's it. It's pretty much, I think it is a...
We've talked about the shield as having various qualities of either being clear through or so forth. Right. I still think of it as a very finely woven spider web. It's very
It's strong. A protection. It's just a really, as she said, it's a protection of the audience from trickster. And at some point in the middle of the piece, she takes it off. She's had it. She takes it off, and it's really, it comes after the moment when she tells me that story about the woman who went around stabbing the flowers, and I don't know why she does it at that moment, but it would seem to me that it's something about realization of some.
It's also a device, I think, to get. She mentions to begin with that if Coyote can help me with trickster's vengeance, then the waterfall will come to earth. And just as in life we have for ourselves either barriers or ways of getting through things, and sometimes they appear and disappear. And we blame ourselves for them or not being there, whatever. When they're there when we need them and there when we don't sometimes. And I think the shield is one of those devices that helps in helping Coyote and trickster bring the waterfall to earth.
Okay, thank you.
While Mednick and Company spun the many strands of their dramatic web, artist Danial Stolpe was demonstrating some coyote synchronicity as his own mythic imagery turned naturally to the theme of coyote trickster, part animal, part god, a Native American image of every man in transition. Stolpe carved Coyote Suites 1 and 2 into 20 multicolored woodblock prints, which abound with raw energy. When Mednick saw a copy of Stolpe's book, he invited him to view the plays and asked him to do the graphics and poster for the 1984 Santa Fe production of all 7 plays. After Stolpe completed the first play, Pointing, he thought the epic cycle called for an image for each of the plays, thus the Coyote cycle of woodcuts in the present volume. The aggressive presence of the relief print, the inventive use of the jigsawed color blocks, the incised lines of cutting tool, the opacity of the ink and the pressure of the printing process all evoke the immediacy and the magic expressed by the characters in the plays. The brightness of colors and the light source within the pictures give a visual simulation of Mednick's legendary reality. Mednick's Coyote cycle encompasses past, present, and future times, and Stolpe's woodcuts are bold interpretations of events in the plays. The characters are portrayed with fur and claws, part human, part animal, and mysteriously divine in their miraculous transformations. The Coyote legends prowl through the unique collaboration between artist Danial Owen Stolpe and playwright Murray Mednick. Orrin Lyons of the Onondaga Nation says in the introduction to Stolpe's Coyote Cycle portfolio, "The Coyote stories are indigenous to this land, and the coyote belongs to the Indian nations throughout these lands. His message is always the same, the fallibility of the human race." Coyote Trickster is alive and well today, eating his own intestines, fouling his own nest, treating various parts of himself as though they were separate, then howling with pain when he stabs his own hand or burns his own anus. Like Coyote, contemporary Western man has forgotten his origin. neglected his roots, but all his flashy technology and power tripping failed to fool anyone other than himself. By conquering nature, modern man has only succeeded in divorcing himself from reality, and the price he must pay is nothing less than ecological disaster on a global scale. Hence we have the trickster, the sacred clown, Hayoka, jester, fool, the backward-walking contrary who harms with impunity or heals through accident. Powerful and irresponsible, coyote trickster's primordial nature is too innocent to be truly evil, yet he represents the spirit of disorder. Destroyer of boundaries, his lust and hunger are never fully satisfied. For Mednick and Stolpe, all consciousness and life are intertwined and connected. The images and characters they have created are saturated with mysticism and are outside the bounds of time. Coyote Trickster is a sacred being who skins us to reveal an ancient truth. The secret source of these images and plays is in ourselves.